I've always been a writer. I've always loved it. I realized at a pretty young age I was decently good at it. Wanted to figure out how to be paid to write. That always is the dream, I think, for anyone who loves to do what I do. There's a whole world out there of writing jobs. A lot of the time, we think you can either be a writer or you could be a journalist, and there's really a whole other world out there. And for me, I found marketing was where I liked to be. It gives me a little bit of the creative side and the strategic side. I love being able to apply sales psychology to what I write, but then also get to be more biased than I was when I was in journalism school. Get to really help people and support businesses that I love to support, that I love to see succeed. That's really what it's all about for me. When it's easy like that, that's it. You're done. Don't spend 10 years thinking, "Oh, is it good enough? Is it good enough?" It's perfect. If it hit you like that, that's the one.
Hi, Sarah. I am thrilled to be chatting with you and connecting further.
Ditto. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yay. And for those who are listening and don't see the videos, so this is both on YouTube, but for the audio part, Sarah has this beautiful fireplace background with plants. So I love it. I love the feel of it.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
Yeah, so I'd love for you to start out and share a little bit about yourself and what are you doing right now?
Yeah, sure. Well, for anyone looking at the background, I will say we're planning to put bookshelves behind here. So if you see my bad paint job, that's why. There's a chair rail in the rest of the room. You just can't see it. But yeah, okay. So about me, I'm a creative copywriter and a brand voice specialist. So what that means is that I help people create brand voices for their business so that marketing themselves is more fun and more enjoyable and feels more authentic to you. I also ghostwrite blogs, websites, and social media captions for people who have established brand voices but maybe don't have the time to keep up with them on the everyday life of being a solopreneur.
Perfect. I love how you explained a little more about what it means. And we've chatted before, and when we chatted, I thought, oh, you have such a cool story. It would be so neat to share it. And so we're here on the podcast. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about the brand voice. So help me reconcile these two kind of concepts is, because I think people, when we think about social media and posting, whether you have your own business or not, there's a lot of talk about authenticity, and obviously you actually want to probably build your brand either way, whether you're an employee or employer or a business owner, because I think it becomes more and more important nowadays to have that. But can you talk more about the brand voice? Because to me, it feels like, okay, if you're authentic, then why do you need a brand voice? Like, isn't that something like made up and then we're just making kind of another character?
Yeah, this is such a great question. So your brand voice is really the persona of your business. So yes, it is something that you can make up. For brands that sell products, for example, it's really helpful to have a brand voice that is different from anything to do with maybe the owners. Sometimes, the owners can be famous, maybe they're a comedian, maybe they want a bit of their personality in the brand, but it's important to establish this brand story and identity so that you have something that will connect with your audience. Now, for people who run service based businesses, which are usually the people I work with the most, especially young entrepreneurs. I mean, it doesn't matter what age you are really, but entrepreneurs overall, they want to have more of themselves in their business, especially when it's something that is heart centered. So for example, I work with a lot of coaches, and coaches are a great use case where they want a bit of themselves in the brand, but they don't necessarily know where to draw the line. They aren't sure of how personal to be, how professional to be, and where is that perfect medium for them. And so What establishing a brand voice does is it really gives you that guideline. It gives you the solid, I know exactly where that line is. I know who I want to sound like. I know who I'm speaking to. I know the emotions that I want to evoke from my audience. I know the feelings I want them to have when they read anything from me. And it gives you a chance to really connect with your audience in a more unique way. In this age of like chat GPT, everybody sounds a little bit the same. We've all rely on this service to do a lot of the writing for us, which no knock to that. I totally get it. You want to save time where you can. But when we all start to sound the same, it's hard to choose someone that we feel we can relate to, especially in those service-based businesses. So yeah, that's I don't know. I hope that answers your question. It's a little bit of both. You get to include as much of yourself or as little of yourself as you want in your brand voice, but by establishing it, you're able to take yourself a little bit out of the equation. It doesn't feel as much like you're marketing yourself in your own business anymore. It feels like you're doing the work for someone else. You get to write for someone else, like a friend, which is
Mm,
always easier.
I love that. I love your explanation.
Thank you.
And I think many people will be able to relate. Um, let's say if you're an employee of a company, you're talking about coaches, but I think there's similarities. Like as you are looking to also build your brand, because I mean, let's face it now, a company can not need you tomorrow, right? And like you said, with AI and a lot of things going on, you probably want to differentiate yourself, and brand, I think, is a key mechanism or one of the ways to elevate your opportunities, and separate yourself. And I think, can you talk maybe a little more? How would you guide somebody who works maybe for a company to know that line? Because I can totally see the same kind of question or wondering kind of, what is that line? How much do I put in it of myself and that personality versus where it's kind of starts a brand and I have to think about like the other aspects.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So I would say that's really important if you're in a creative field. That's really the differentiator to me. I think if you work in a corporate field where you maybe don't necessarily need to have that creative flair. If you do accounting, for example, you might not necessarily need your own brand voice, but if you do something on the creative side, you're an artist, you're an author, you're a
Could
writer,
be
you're a designer.
marketing. It could be
Yeah,
marketing, sales, HR.
absolutely. Yeah. Something where you have a work portfolio, for example, then building out your portfolio, building yourself a website, and really thinking through not just who you are and what you want to say, but who you're speaking to. That's really the most helpful step, I think, in starting to build a brand voice is determining who your audience is and how they speak, right? How they talk to people,
Mhm.
what they look for in people they want to hire. Um, and really think through, who they are and try to sound a bit like them. I'm not saying you need to change your whole personality. No one should do anything like that. Be you, be authentic, but think through what your audience wants to hear and who they're really looking for so that you can show up and be that person that they've been searching for.
I love that you're saying that, because I think that is kind of how you can elevate your posts, messaging, marketing, your positioning, because um, like thinking about, I do think it's kind of the next level, when you think about, okay, let's say you're in sales or HR, it's not totally behind the kind of behind the closed doors, or like you have interactions, but it's many times within the company, right? It's not just kind of heads down positions, but it's
Mhm.
not like a fashion designer or where you will have like a portfolio of some kind of visual images, right? But you still need to build that brand, um and kind of diving deeper into the kind of how who is it that you're marketing to. So if it would be future employers, and you're kind of thinking through who would be those leaders that would interview you, that would actually look for somebody like you. Is it the head of your department? Is it the head of somebody who's a head of global function? Or is it a smaller CEO, of a smaller company? Like, thinking through, and this is where you can use a chat GPT, right, or any other
Mhm.
AI, is really understanding, uh, in addition to observing the leaders, the appropriate leaders in your own environment, is understand what's on their mind, how they think, how they frame the problem, what they look for in a solution. And I think that is a really good point, is kind of that's when you elevate and kind of I feel like level one is that authenticity, where you're just doing it for yourself. Kind of your posts are more like what you feel like, what you think, but it's not so much centered into how do I tie it back to the client's main pain points or the audience that I want to reach? Maybe
Yeah.
it's not necessarily a buying client, but in a way, it will be somebody who will pay you at the end, right? Who will make that decision where, you will be employed. So I think that's a great, great kind of focus for getting to that next level of your social media, whether you have a website or not.
Mhm.
It might be just the posts on LinkedIn and how you write.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, you really wanna think through your audience, and I like what you said about, this is the perfect use case for ChatGPT because it really is. I always tell people ChatGPT is an amazing tool, but it's a tool, right? It's not the end all be all product. You always wanna put your own personal flair on things if you're having it write something that's going to be customer facing, client facing, and, employee facing, what that kind of nature. But really, it's a wonderful tool to build an audience persona. If you're really trying to think through who your audience is, it's really helpful for that. You can, enter all your information of who you are, who you want to work with, and ask it to give you audience personas that are detailed with key messaging for how to speak to those people.
Mhm.
What kinds of messages would really strike them, would make them stop scrolling. And it can be really helpful to really just think through who you're speaking to in a detailed way. We make posts and we write websites and we write blogs and we just throw them out there for the world, and it feels like tossing it into a void. We're just hoping that someone out there is going to come back to us. But if you're thinking through who you're targeting and what they want to hear, then you're going to be more likely to catch those fish, right? And it's really helpful to do that. So yeah, I like the way you phrase that with using ChatGPT. Perfect use case.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm on the journey. I'm learning myself, and I would say that I'm now going through that like a more, in a more focused way. Kind of, I think we're all learning and growing, and it really, it kind of like is a little bit tricky in the beginning, but like yesterday I was just using I use Claude, but it's same concept, chat GPT, right?
Mhm.
That you don't have to interview 500 people 10 people, from your target audience, because sometimes you might not even have access, or it would take you a long time to really, but you can understand how, because we're so much in our heads and in our perspective. And I've seen and experienced myself communication like breakdown, where you kind of have the solution for the problem, your discipline, but the person is thinking in other terms. They're just using different language, and it's like total. They don't even see it doesn't connect because they are using a different language and you're using your language, and you're like, I know this, I can run this, I can solve this problem, but somehow there's like you're talking two different languages. And I think this is where it's kind of the brand
Yeah.
voice and understanding what you were saying, the your target audience, and then being more focused in how you write. And maybe you don't really have to write 50 posts, but your one post can be much more powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're so right. The speaking the different languages, I most of my clients come from corporate, right? I mean, that's tends to be the pipeline. People start in corporate, they realize they don't want to do that forever, or they have this passion project that they want to get off the ground and they decide they're going to start their own business. And when you go from one of those to the other, they are completely different languages. I was actually just talking about this to my husband the other day. Um, so in the corporate world, that's one type of language. I can speak the corporate speak. I worked for corporate for a long time. I wrote for BarkBox, the dog toy company. That's a whole different level of corporate language speak. All dogs all the time, and it's a little bit more friendly, outgoing, I would say, for a corporate environment.
Mhm.
It has a little bit of a younger feel to it. But then going from that and becoming an entrepreneur, solopreneur, freelancer, it's a whole different world. And speaking to, I find it interesting speaking to male entrepreneurs versus female entrepreneurs. I feel like we speak different languages as well. When I talk to men in the corporate world, it's very often about the money. It's about the business, your growth and the stats. You want to really get into that information and have that ready to go so that you can talk about those things in a way that feels authentic to you, but also a way that, doesn't intimidate you when someone asks those questions. But then with women, they're all about your journey. They want to know, how you balance your home life and your work life and what you're doing to avoid burnout. And we have very different holistic conversations that feels like speaking an entire different language. And it's just really fascinating, and we do these things without, we switch languages like that without always thinking about it. A lot of people do it very intuitively, some better than others, but it's something that we naturally do when we talk to different people in different environments, and
Mhm.
you don't really realize you do it. So figuring out, what that looks like and writing it down on paper, giving yourself those guidelines, it can really be a huge game changer for you because you're going to see how to stay consistent and how to speak to the right people all the time.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and that's just one of the things I love about what I do. I love being able to help people figure that out. I get a lot of the messy middle, right? Where people tell me all their big ideas. This is what they want to sound like. This is what they want their brand to feel like. This is their message and their passion. And then figuring out how to take all of those things and turn it into this stylized brand is my favorite thing. I always love getting to hand that back and for my clients to say things like, "Oh, I feel like you see me, you understand me," or "This is what I always wanted it to be, and I didn't know how to do it." That's the most rewarding thing. That's the most rewarding thing of working with any small business, though. I'm sure you
Mhm.
probably agree.
I love that. Well, I love that you, first of all, started kind of sharing a bit more about your story because I want to delve into it. And the second
Yeah.
part is kind of what you mentioned about, the different type of clients. And I think, like, for many people, even like when they are still in that working for somebody phase, it's the same dilemma. So, like, let's say you're in sales or any other kind of, so there are many disciplines that interface with different groups of people, and so kind of that how, and then the question comes up like who is it that I'm speaking to in my posts, right? Am I speaking to my future employers, or am I speaking to my clients, right? If I'm in sales or if I'm recruiting, and am I speaking to the candidates, like, and how do I manage this, it seems like then you have to create almost two personas, right?
Mhm.
Plus, and then it's like a lot of like shifting for your brain to manage.
Yeah, no, that's so true. I think a lot of us have trouble narrowing down our focus in that way. We don't want to limit ourselves by working with one particular type of client or
Mhm.
in one particular field, but
Mhm.
it can be really beneficial if you do. If you do set some parameters of who is
Yeah.
more specifically you're speaking to, and yeah, if you narrow down your focus, because you're right, marketing to a whole bunch of different people, it can be quite challenging.
Yeah.
That's why people normally end up having multiple different, Instagram accounts. They have one for their art and they have one for their business, and you
Mhm.
know, uh, people do that on purpose because it's easier to track who is following you. It's easier to track who is engaging with your content,
Mhm.
what audience you're trying to bring in, and you can really narrow the message that you're sending out. So you have certain key points. You say all the time, these are the ones that work, and you know that they work, and you know that people
Mhm.
connect with them.
Mhm.
Yeah, it can be helpful to narrow down, but it can be quite challenging, especially when you're unsure where you want to go and you want to keep your options open. But I mean, you can do that too. It's just a little trickier.
Well, how do you do it for yourself? Like you said, your posts to your male audience would look very different, much more like focused, like to the point, right? Data and results driven, versus like the more, like you said, the journey, the touchy feely. I mean, I'm just generalizing here, but how do you manage that for yourself?
Well, I'll be honest, I like working with women more.
Okay, okay.
I love working with female entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
I mean, part of it's because I am one and I connect with them. I feel like I understand them well.
Yeah.
But I feel like women understand my mission really well, too. It's something that women can really relate to, trying to figure out where to draw that line between how much they can share and how much they maybe shouldn't share. Feeling awkward about marketing yourself, that's something that I find a lot of women just really relate to and understand. And I definitely get it being a female entrepreneur myself.
Mhm.
So yeah, for me, I narrowed it down, and it took some time to really decide if I wanted to do that. But I decided it was the right path for me. So really focusing on female entrepreneurs, people in their first few years of business. Maybe they're scaling up. They're realizing, they want a change. They want to start being really specific with their marketing. They want to target the right people.
Mhm.
They Maybe they relied too heavily on ChatGPT before and they built their website and they know that they want to do more. They want to have more of
Mhm.
themselves in their marketing.
Mhm.
So I really narrowed it down, and that's I
Okay.
guess the really short of the answer, but
No, I love
it
it.
was
I was
helpful for me.
No, and it's helpful to know your experience. I think this is how we learn. At least for me, it's the best when you talk to somebody, right? And learn about different experiences, how people are doing it. So you focus, kind of your messaging is focused on that. And then but you worked with men in the past, or if men come along, if they respond to that, but when you create
Yeah.
messaging, then you focus on that one avatar or persona.
Yes, yes, exactly. And like you said, it's not necessarily that you have to pick and choose a specific client forever.
Mhm.
Like you said, if men come along and they respond well to my message, wonderful. Like I would be happy to work with someone who responds well to what I'm putting out there in the world.
Mhm.
That's the whole point. If they relate to what I'm saying, that's amazing, and I'm happy to help anybody who comes along and feels that I could help them. But yeah, focusing on who you envision talking to is just helpful.
Mhm.
It just keeps things simpler. You
Yeah.
know where to start. You know where to what message to begin with, and that's really the key. It keeps you from staring at a blank page and a blinking cursor forever for hours on end, wondering where to start. You know where to start. You know who you're talking to, and that's a huge piece.
I love that. I love that. And I think it makes it less overwhelming because, it's amazing to have like help, like your help. and somebody that can do it. But sometimes, if you're still at a phase where you're just, you're doing it yourself, then obviously it's time consuming, and it's a whole, I mean, it's a focused and concerted effort, and but understanding and kind of then starting with that one, like researching that one uh, type of person in general that you want to serve. Then because everybody talk like even different ages, there are different problems in their mind, different ways that they name them, that they name themselves, that they phrase, and so there will be different verbiage that will and different phases of life and different experiences that will relate to that specific group.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So interesting. So let's dive a little more deeper into your own story. So tell us how this kind of passion and love for writing started for you. Maybe in
Oh my
school
gosh.
already.
Yeah, well, we could go all the way back, but I've always been a writer. I've always loved it. I realized at a pretty young age I was decently good at it. Wanted to figure out how to be paid to write. That always was the dream, I think, for anyone who loves to do what I do. I, wrote for my newspaper in college, or well, in high school actually, and then went to school for journalism in college. And that really opened my eyes. There's a whole world out there of writing jobs. A lot of the time, we think you can either be a writer or you could be a journalist. And there's really a whole other world out there. And for me, I found marketing was where I liked to be. It gives me a little bit of the creative side and the strategic side. I love being able to apply sales psychology to what I write, but then also get to be more biased than I was when I was in journalism school. Get to really help people and support businesses that I love to support, that I love to see succeed. That's really what it's all about for me. But yeah, so let's see. I left journalism school. I ended up in many different marketing jobs. I was in strategic social media for a while, which was really fun and fast paced. But if everything changes so quickly, so I didn't know if I wanted to keep up with that forever. And then for me, I felt like I really figured it out when I found copywriting, particularly creative copywriting with BarkBox, the doctor company that I mentioned before. They have a fun, silly, quirky voice. Anyone listening who knows BarkBox knows exactly what I'm talking about. They write quirky, silly copy in absolutely everything. So I worked for their retail team. So I didn't get to write for the subscription. Anyone who's listening that has a subscription, I'm sorry, I didn't get to write those. Sometimes my jokes landed in there, but not always. But that was a different team, and they're so talented as well. But I worked for the retail side. So I named toys, I wrote the product packaging for anything that went in retail stores: Target, Walmart, Petco, PetSmart, what have you. Um, yeah, and that was such a dream. Getting to see something you wrote and a character that you named come to life in that way and hit the shelves was really magical. And it really opened my eyes. It was something that I enjoyed doing absolutely every day. And it's kind of funny because I wrote dog puns every day of my life. It was all dogs all the time. And let me tell you, you can run out of dog puns. There are only so many. But it was such a good time. And I loved the team I worked with. We did a lot of writers' room meetings where we would help each other write different content, which is why I said some of my jokes might land in the subscription box. That team would ask for help naming some toys or coming up with some jokes sometimes, and we would do the same. And it was really wonderful to get to have that experience working with a creative team that really gets it and loves what they do. But anywho, my time with Bark did come to an end. They ended up going through many, many rounds of layoffs.
Mm.
and I was part of the second one. They had a lot of business ventures, I think, that didn't pan out. So they needed to cut money somewhere, and that ended up with duplicate roles like mine, some of the creative team, which was sad to see. But but I really loved working there, and that really cinched it for me. That was the kind of lane I wanted to be in. That was the writing that I really enjoyed doing, and I think a large part of it is that they have a very specific brand voice. They're very rooted in nostalgia. They're very silly. They're fun. They're quirky. They don't take themselves too seriously. They're not afraid to, toe the line of what's appropriate for dog toys, even. And it was always a good time. But getting to have those really like specific guidelines to follow made my job always feel like a creative puzzle and not really a chore. And I think that was the key for me. So when wasn't working there anymore, trying to figure out what's my next perfect gig. Do I go and try to name nail polish? Do I try to work for a toy company? Um, those jobs are few and far between. Every writer wants the fun, quirky jobs, but for me, I really wanted to work with small businesses. I wanted to find a way to bring that joy of writing with a brand voice that is specific, that feels like a fun challenge to people who really struggle with writing for themselves the most. And that's small businesses and small business owners. I've never met a single small business owner that loves marketing themselves. Even the people in marketing, it's always easier to write for someone else. That's why we had those writers' room meetings. That's why we, would try to pitch ideas for one another. It's always simpler when you feel like you're writing for someone who's outside of yourself. So figuring out how to do that for solopreneurs, for women who are going out and starting a coaching business, and designers, that's a beautiful thing for me. So yeah, that's how I landed here. It's been a wild journey, but I love it. And then I work with agencies too, which is always nice. That's tends to be branding agencies, marketing agencies. That tends to be where the clients are a lot of the time these days, and that's totally fine. Getting to have someone be able to hand me work, can't complain.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I still get to help small businesses there too, because small businesses go to a bigger company that they feel they can trust, and that's totally fair. Can't knock it.
Yeah, and plus it probably depends on the economy, right? And kind of like, and then you can
Mhm.
shift, based on where, the demand or, actual clients are. I can appreciate
Exactly.
that. And we all kind of have to adapt or be flexible sometimes. So, how did you get the clarity to, okay, you love BarkBox, and is it an Ohio company?
Good question. So it's actually in New York, but their
Okay.
customer service team is in Ohio. It's in
Okay.
Columbus, which is where I am. So I heard about it from people who are here that worked at their office that's here. Um, yeah, I actually worked for their customer service through 2020 when jobs were hard to find, and that was so wonderful. It was work from home. I mean, can't really go wrong with helping people who want help with their dog toy subscription. They're usually pretty nice.
Oh, that's so cool. I had not even, now I'm like curious about the company. I had not even heard about it. Maybe I'm living under the rock.
Oh, no, I mean, if I think it's something that, like, if you have dogs, I don't know, I always got targeted their ads, which granted, I read all of their ads because I wrote some, so
Yeah,
I
I
always
have a
wanted
dog,
to
but I
know.
never did their ads.
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny. Once you start seeing them, you trust me, you'll never unsee them. You'll start seeing them all the time in your feed. Um, they're always so funny and silly. If you've ever seen ads for toys that are like for the 420 box, or fun partnerships with like Scooby Doo or Snoopy, or something along those lines. Home Alone. Oh my gosh, that was a hugely popular box. That was crazy. Working customer service with the Home Alone themed box was wild. Everyone wanted it. It was a limited run thing. But yeah, they do those fun things. So if you ever see those ads on Facebook that That is them, probably.
That's what I thought it would be, like, it's such a cool job, like, and it's not like you're kind of ordinary or kind of like it was I had never heard of it, and I thought it would be so cool to bring you on to talk about, your experience, and plus I love your energy, kind of like very soft and gentle and such a good positive energy. So I was like, I need to talk to her.
You're so sweet. I love talking to you too. You just have this like bubbly energy and I love it. I feel like we definitely feed off of each other really well. So this felt like a match made in heaven. I was so excited you asked me to do this.
Aw, thank you. Thank you, thank you. And I was, as you were talking about kind of writing and kind of getting ideas, because I feel like it's with everything. It's fun when it's a hobby or something new, right? But when we make it becomes a job, which inevitably anything, like even if you take your passion and now you have to, you're working on it most days, it
Hmm.
kind of becomes a job, and I think people can lose like the lackluster, kind of the shininess, the appeal, because you kind of hit like, oh, now I have to do this. Now I have to write about this, from social media to wherever, right? I have to kind of work in it and create so much narrative and marketing and sales materials around it that how do you recommend that people can keep it fun and exciting and to kind of keep the creative juices flowing?
Yeah. I mean, it can be really tough. I won't deny, being in any creative field and trying to keep that creative energy going can be really tough. For me, I found anything that was a simple enough task, something maybe I did all the time. Coming up with good systems for yourself is really helpful. So, naming dog toys, for example, I named a bajillion dog toys. There's only so many paw puns you can use before it starts to be annoying. But for toys, we would. I had a list. I had a list of every dog themed word that I possibly could think of. Anything that other writers said, anything I saw in person, online. You see a good word and you write it down. You add it to the list, and that was really helpful because there's those moments, you're staring at the same toy over and over and you're like, I don't know. Is there a dog word that, fits well with this type of toy? Does it make sense? For things that were characters, for example, anything that had a face, we tried to give it a human name. So that was kind of the system, right? We're like, okay, it's a character, it has a face, it needs a human name, and then it needs a dog themed word to go with it. Or something that's themed to the collection, coming up with those kinds of systems for yourself. Um, for example, there was a reindeer toy. Gosh, I probably still have it over here. I'm sure I realized now you couldn't hear me when I said that when I turned my head. But it was a reindeer toy. It has these candy cane antlers. And I saw him and I said, his name is Felix Navidad. I just knew it in my heart the second I saw him. And when it's easy like that, that's it. You're done. Don't spend 10 years thinking, oh, is it good enough? Is it good enough? It's perfect. If it hit you like that, that's the one. And coming up with those kinds of systems of like, okay, it needs a human name, it needs a this kind of thing. And coming up with lists that you can rely on, that you can look at over and over. Finding those kinds of systems is really a great way to save yourself some brain power in the end. Things that you do every day. For my brand voice clients, I have my brand voice style guide, and I made a template for myself, and I'm working hard every single day to try to make to try to fill out these guides in a way that's more and more efficient for me because my time is my most valuable resource. It's the one thing that I can try to figure out and rely on. If I need to spend, you know, 3 hours working on these versus 6 hours, I need to figure out how to cut that time down so that I'm paying myself fairly, and valuing my own time. So coming up with templates that you can follow. figuring out, how you can take information from one thing and translate it to the other more efficiently.
Mhm.
That's all really helpful. And it frees up your time. I realize I only have around 4 hours a day of true like creative writing time. And other than that, my brain is fried. There's only so much you can do in a day. So figuring
Yeah.
out how to free up that time for yourself is really the key.
Mhm.
At least that's what's worked for me. And
Mhm.
I have to credit the 4 hour thing to Liz Heflin. She is also an amazing copywriter, um, amazing ghostwriter. She doesn't necessarily do a lot of branding. She mostly does ghostwriting, but she's an incredible resource for anyone who wants to go be a freelance writer. She has tons of amazing webinars and resources. Definitely recommend you check her out. But yeah, she said the 4 hours. I was like, oh my gosh, she's right. That's all I've got to. I really do. And you can't beat yourself up over that. You got to recognize where your limits are and then figure out how to use that time as efficiently as possible.
Mhm. And I think this is where it can be challenging for, like, let's say if your job is something else, right? You're not full-time branding, copywriting, writing person. You're working, your day, the 8 hours is taken up by your main focus. And
Mhm.
then kind of knowing that if you do want to market yourself, that you have to allocate, kind of create that system for yourself, and maybe allocate 30 minutes or an hour or something that is doable for you a day, which days a week, and kind of that you need to have that brain power and kind of just knowing your own capacity, like what you're saying, that you realized 4 hours is when I have capacity to be creative.
Yeah. Yeah, it's important. You gotta figure out where that baseline is for you, right? And whether that's writing or anything, really, any type of job. I mean, the creative ones I'd say especially, but recognizing, how much time a project will truly take you,
Hmm.
especially if you're freelancing, really thinking through
Yeah.
and practicing. It's trial and error. You may not figure it out on the first project. You may
Yeah,
lose money on the first project.
for
We
sure.
all probably
Most
do.
likely.
Yeah, most
First
likely you
year,
will.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, figuring out how to manage yourself in that way. I mean, that's a huge hurdle. I could go on about learning how to manage yourself for forever, but yeah, figuring those things out. I mean, it's really the key to success. It's the key to making more money, especially if you're on your own as a freelancer or a solopreneur. Your time truly is your most valuable resource in determining, okay, I know these kinds of projects take me a certain amount of time. I either need to take less time or I need to block that out in my calendar and know that that is how long it takes me. And then that's how much I know I need to bill as well. I need to bill for that much of my time. Um, that's
Yeah.
that's been the key for me so far. I mean, I'm only a year and a half in, but I'm always happy to tell everyone I meet who's trying to enter this field everything I know. I feel like I just want to like
Mm.
throw all the information out of them, be like, please learn from my mistakes, learn what I didn't know.
Yeah.
And yeah, those are the keys for me.
I mean, it's so huge. Save yourself, like, the time, right? And these trials and errors. And thank you so much for sharing that. So how did you get the clarity then? Barbox has layoffs. How do you get the clarity? I'm gonna go, first of all, on my own. Second of all, this is what I will focus on. I want to work with coaches, or businesses that are just starting out, that are smaller.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it really was a lot of trial and error. So my portfolio was pretty much all BarkBox, right? That was the majority of what I did, and it was the best example of what I did. So it really wasn't. I couldn't open up my niche to be much more than the dog space. So when I first started, I sent a lot of cold emails and I targeted dog companies in particular. I said, I'm a creative copywriter. Here's
Mhm.
what I do. Here's my portfolio. I've worked with BarkBox. I mean, name drop, name drop however much you can. It's worth it, especially if, you're in the corporate world. Name dropping is everything for big brands like that and showing people what you can do. But that was how I started. I started focusing just in the dog industry.
Mhm.
I wanted to branch out of just toys, maybe doing other things. And then pretty much right away, I mean, I got my first client doing that. And I realized I didn't want to write dog things forever. That was the fun of getting to do something new, is that I wanted to actually write about more things. I love to learn. I love to learn about new things and be able to
Mhm.
write about those. So, yeah, it was a lot of trial and error. I think I started with dogs, quickly realized I didn't want to do that. I started working with, gosh, I started working with agencies, which was helpful because that really diversified my portfolio. I was able to get work from all different kinds of clients and showcase that I could write as anyone. As someone who specializes in ghostwriting, that was pretty important to show that I can do more than just silly dog puns. And then going from there, agencies really were helpful for me in doing that. I was able to get a lot of good work writing websites, writing blogs, and really just getting my hands on any kind of work I could. And then from there, I felt like I could pick and choose what I wanted. So then I started targeting, getting more specific in working with female entrepreneurs because that was what it was all about. I realized I didn't want to go get another corporate job. I wanted to be able to do what I want, and I wanted to be able to help the people that were the closest to my heart. And it was other people like me trying to make it work, trying to go do their own thing and have more time to spend with their kids, or in my case, future kids,
Mhm.
figuring those things out. And yeah, those are the people I knew I wanted to work with. So then it turned into, once I felt like I had the right work behind me, then it turned into, okay, how do I take this and target the actual people I want to work with? So that's where we are now.
Yeah, beautiful. And I think that's like so um, true. Like for many people, that's a journey of kind of beta testing, uh,
Hmm.
trying out like first. Kind of, I love how you were talking about expanding, beyond the, um, because that's the most logical thing. But like you said, then you go to somebody who has like totally different business, and they're like, well, I can't like relate that, or I don't really know that you can do something outside of the dog industry, or animal
Yeah.
industry, and that you actively pursued kind of expanding your portfolio. And plus, it sounds like you like the variety, like you need a bit of a variety.
Absolutely. I do. I think it's helpful as a creative to have new things to do, new things to work on, diversify yourself. You don't want to pigeonhole yourself too hard where you're always writing the same thing for the same people, because that is where you start to lose the love of it.
Mm.
Getting to continue to find ways to challenge yourself can be really helpful for defeating burnout, and not getting to that point where you feel like you dread the work you're doing, even though it was something you still love to do.
Yeah, that's an act to balance, or a line to balance, is how. And so like, let's say somebody's thinking, okay, I'm not 100% happy in my job, right? They're kind of going through the motions, and if anything, kind of not really looking forward to the work or the job that they're doing right now. But and thinking about going and doing something on their own, what would you recommend, based on the journey and that you taken the steps of going through it?
Yeah, I would definitely say there's two things. One is that if you have a steady paying job that you are in, don't leave it before you start investing money into what else you want to do. If that means taking a course, if that means paying someone to make a website for you, if that's not your jam, wherever you feel like you would need help in starting a business, look into investing in those people before you go out to go do it. Build yourself a safety net. That's always important. Like people like me, I didn't have that luxury. I was laid off. So, it took me 6 months of looking for a job before I realized this isn't what I want to do anyway. I would rather start my own thing. Um, so getting to have that parachute earlier would be really helpful. Building yourself this like little nest egg, you're, setting yourself up for success and maybe starting to build something that before you necessarily leave can be a total game changer. And then the second thing is that you want to also diversify your portfolio. If you want to get into something that is totally different from what you're doing, do it. All power to you. I love it. Follow your passions, follow your dreams. That's a beautiful thing to do. But if you want to do that and you don't feel like you have the experience, or you don't feel, you have that imposter syndrome of like, oh, I don't know, maybe I could do this, maybe I couldn't. Just find some work in it. Freelance. Do small things outside of work. I know it can be tough to balance a 9 to 5 and to do maybe a side hustle, but it would really be worthwhile to consider if you are able to build up that portfolio for yourself before you leave. That will set you up for success as well. So diversifying your work and investing in yourself, really, and in the business that you're hoping to build, because by doing that, you're going to feel really ready when the time comes to leave, when the time comes to go off and do your own thing. Or you can, transition slowly. That's a wonderful way to go as well. I didn't realize I wanted to be an entrepreneur or a freelancer until it happened, and that's okay too. It's not impossible. I'm here to say it's not impossible, and you can do it. But if you're able to set yourself up for some more success, then you should do it. I would highly encourage you to.
Yeah, I love what you're saying because sometimes it happens by choice and sometimes it happens by circumstance. And
Mhm.
when it happens, then you just kind of have to go with it. But I love what you're saying that, especially if you're in that idea trying phase and kind of still working the kinks out, or it's a new area, many times it will be a new area that you can take the training,
Mhm.
courses, whatever it is, that to get up to speed from that perspective. Because once you do start, if you want to build a business, then there will be um, a lot of your time will go to marketing and sales and getting clients versus actually doing the thing.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
anything you can do to get like the proficiency up in that new field will be very, very helpful and supportive.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking to operations people, if you know any operations people in your life, talk to them. They're all about the efficiency, like I was talking about
Mm.
before, figuring out those systems that'll help benefit you along the
Yeah.
way so that you can spend less time doing all of the other business things and more time doing the thing you love.
Yeah, like the setup and kind of the researching, as much as you can ahead of time. These are kind of some of the back end, like the whether it's an email system or whether it's some kind of tool that you will end up needing, that it can take up time. And if you can make those decisions kind of more the back end, I think that's easier to combine with a job, because like I go back and forth. Yes, there are some things you can do, but you also have to know yourself. Like if you are more introverted, I feel like this like advice about starting it in addition to your job is many times given by extroverts who have much more energy, and then it can be
Yeah.
like, I just remember when you're doing a job, like I didn't have energy, like really to meaningfully show up for anything consistent. Like I just needed like to recover, to gather my energy. Like I needed some downtime, like so that's why I
Mm.
go back and forth. It's really kind of depends on the person, how much you can really build in addition to
Yeah.
a full-time job. And then I guess it depends also how demanding the job is.
Yeah, no, that's very true. I used to wait tables. Like, I wouldn't do anything other than wait tables. That was a really hard time to be trying to find other work or do a side hustle or, build something for yourself because you come home at the end of the day and you're just exhausted.
Mhm.
Um, with Bark, I think I could have done a little more. I chose not to. I liked my life. I liked my job, so I wasn't so worried about it then.
Yeah.
But when the time hits and you want to change everything up, it's nice if you're prepared. And even if you aren't able to set yourself up in terms of a portfolio, just being able to figure out how to financially sustain yourself for a while because businesses grow slowly. That's just the way that they are. It would be so wonderful if you could open your doors and immediately have $5,000 a month come in the door, but that's just not the way it always works.
Sometimes,
And
but
it
not
takes
like
time.
sometimes, but like it might be more of an exception.
Yeah, exactly. And that's okay. Don't beat yourself up if you don't hit those milestones right away. That's all of the gurus out there will tell you like, oh, I hit 8,000 plus dollars a month in however short of time. And it's wild. I mean, maybe you can and like shoot for the stars, go for it. Um, Definitely do give it your all, but you be humble, be realistic, and recognize that, like, it can take time, and that's okay too. You're building something that should hopefully last the rest of your working life, and you're trying to build something that you love, and those things take time, and they should take time so that you're actually creating something that's sustainable for you and something you actually enjoy doing,
Mhm.
with clients you enjoy working with, that's what it's all about.
I love that. I love everything that you're sharing. How would you, what advice would you give to somebody who is like knows they want something else, but don't know exactly? Kind of even with you, you knew writing, but I didn't even realize how many flavors of writing, right? There's like journalism that's completely different than, like you said, ghostwriting or being a brand voice. There are like so many, feels like hundreds or thousands of ways how
Mhm.
you can use that talent. If somebody doesn't, like, they're not happy, not fulfilled, even much more than that, but they don't know what to pivot to.
For me, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. It's a really fair question. I didn't know what I wanted to do, in writing. I knew I just wanted to write and be paid to do it, something I like to do. And when I started in journalism, I realized that wasn't the thing I wanted. So, I was on this path of like trying to search for it. And for me, what really did it was when I found a mentor. And that's what I would recommend is finding someone who is doing that dream job, something that you love doing. Um, for me, I found that through Bark when I worked there. They had a nice mentorship program at the time when I was there, and I actually helped someone. In the corporate space, a copywriter, senior copywriter, with his BarkBox. He had, a question, chatted in, and I happened to get that chat. And then, he said he was an employee. I looked him up on our Slack and was like, hey, your job is really cool. Don't be afraid to ask people to talk to them because it can work, those opportunities are few and far between. You got to seize them when you see them. And that's what I did. I messaged him. I said, hey, I would love to learn more about what you do. And he happened to be offering office hours for the mentorship program. And it was just an opportunity to learn more about what he did and what his daily work life was like. And when we had that conversation, you know, he liked me. He liked my energy. He was all about it. He was like, "I want to be the change I want to see in the world, and I want to help you succeed." And he ended up being the one who really helped me get my copywriting job there.
That is really, really good advice. And I think it can really help shorten, like, there will be inevitable trial and error and testing things and trying things. But I think going with somebody that you decide, okay, I would like to have that, or that could be the solution to my question, or an answer to my question, or the next step, and finding somebody who can show you the way and kind of make it shorter for sure. Uh,
Yeah. And a lot of the time people want to help you too. They really are excited to give someone else that leg up they didn't have. I mean, that's what happened with me, and it can happen for you too. You'll be surprised how often people genuinely just wish to help you and see you succeed. And yeah, by putting yourself out there and asking for help, then you can get it.
I love that. And that's why you're paying it forward, and just remembering that there are amazing people out there, super, super helpful. So, Sarah,
Yeah.
how can people find you, connect with you, and follow you for more?
Ooh, fun question. Well, you can go to my website. It's sarahrosewrites.com. I'm also on Instagram the most of all of my social media platforms. For that, it's sarah.rose.writes. That's my handle. And then, yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn and Facebook as well. All the same thing. Sarah Rose writes. Easy to find, easy to say, easy to remember. That's the way. That's me.
And you do a webinar, right? You do like
Yeah.
a free session every month, or can you tell us about that?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I do a free webinar every month. Thank you for thinking of that. It's so funny the things you forget to say when you're live. But yeah, I host a free brand voice webinar every month. It's on LinkedIn. So if you find my page on there, you can find my event. I also post about it pretty frequently. But yeah, it's everything you'd want to know about why your business needs a brand voice, what brand voices are, how they're helpful, and how you can start to establish one for yourself. And then, of course, I talked about my package offers too, but it's all free info. And yeah, if you're interested, I'd love to see you there. Talking about brand voices and helping people is my passion. So, any opportunity to do that is a happy one for me.
I love that. I think it can serve as um, the next step, like helping with to think it through, and kind of start that marketing, or even shortcut some of those kind of frustrations where you're just doing things ad hoc or without much direction. Is I highly recommend that people go check out your webinar, because it would be helpful, and then and when the point comes, right, when you build and you can hire somebody, then obviously you pursue that. But I think it will be hugely helpful, to really kind of have a bit more thought and intention behind wherever you write. I mean, most likely you will have to write somewhere about yourself, whether you're working for somebody or starting an idea. And I think it will really, really save you time and give you ideas and kind of a bit more of a focus with that
Yeah,
time that you do put into it.
absolutely. Yeah, I'm all about simplifying your marketing, right? Making it easier and making it feel more authentic to you.
I love that, because we can make anything a job. We can make so many things, right, that will inevitably come with the day to day, whether you're in a position of working for somebody else or starting something on your own. We can make everything so heavy and such a to do,
Mhm.
and I love your energy. I think just like shifting the energy is a huge thing to get the inspiration and to make it more fun. And sometimes we need other people to do that, to remind ourselves, okay, let's play a little bit.
Yeah, it's your business. So you can do what you want. And we often feel like we can't, we feel like we have to fit in this box, but it's yours. Make it yours, make it feel like yours. That's what's really going to connect people anyway. That's what is really going to draw people to your brand is if you are authentic to yourself and the energy that you put out there is what you want to receive from other people.
I love it. Thank you for being you. Thank you for being such a beautiful human being, such a sweetheart, and just a pleasure always to interact with, and also sharing so much goodness.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure, Viva. I have really enjoyed it. I've never been on podcasts before, and this month, I swear, after you asked me, I suddenly had a whole bunch of people ask me. It's been the craziest thing. So now I feel like this might be my lane. Who knows? But this has been so much fun. I really appreciate the opportunity. And yeah, I love what you do. I love that you encourage people to go live their dreams and find the career that is going to make their heart happy. It's a beautiful message.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Ta-da! More. See, I want more people to learn about you, and I'm so happy to hear that you will be kind of getting your message out there and getting more of what you do out there kind of with every conversation. And see, we did so well. It was such a fun time, and all the links will be included in the show notes. So you can connect with Sarah just by clicking on the show notes and any of the platform links from there. So thank you so much for being here.